Howdy friends, welcome back to West Fork. It is a nice evening. It's April 9th today. I thought we'd take a little trip out in the woods and talk about tarp shelters, specifically the Log Tarp Camp that I made. You might recall a couple videos ago I took an early spring bushcraft trip and I made a log tarp shelter that was so nice. Since then, I've thought it over and I've come up with a real simple way to set that up real quickly. So anyway, I thought we'd take a little trip out into the backwoods so I can show you exactly how I set that up and how quickly I could get it set up. And I have a few tips to make it real simple for you. So stay tuned. I'm going to go find a big down log somewhere and we'll set up the baker tent and turn it into a log tarp shelter. Okay, well, we're on the back side of this outcrop here. A bunch of big ponderosa pines have fallen down. So this is a good spot. This tree here is nice and low to the ground and it'll block the wind from getting inside the shelter and it'll afford a really nice place to sit. I also noticed there's a ton of really good dry firewood here. So this is all a guy needs. There's firewood all over the ground and a nice big limb there you could process into firewood real quick. So anyway, I'll do a little cleanup here and we'll get started setting up the log tarp shelter. Okay, here's my supplies. I have a 10 by 10 nylon tarp there on the left. And I have a hatchet for driving stakes or clearing limbs off the big logs. This one didn't have much. I got a ground tarp and I got a little bag full of stakes and various pieces of cordage. So it's a pretty simple tarp. Before we get started building it though, I want to show you a trick with that tarp on how to make this super fast and to make sure our entrance is lined up perfectly with a log and we can seal the wind out as much as possible. So let's go to the back side and I'll show you how that's done. Okay, this first step is easy to do. What we want to do is take a measurement here, but we don't have any tape measures or anything. So we'll do the next best thing. So as with all baker style tarp configurations, we work off the corners, opposing corners, the back and the front. And what we want to do is get 2 small stakes. We want to go to this back corner. We want to count in 2 grommets, or in this case, loops. If you have grommets on your tarp, that'll work great. I have loops. So we want to stick that corner in. And then here's the back. Here's the back corner. We count 2 in. And we're going to count 2 here from our back corner. And we're going to pull this tight. Now this is a measurement you're going to want to remember forever, as long as you have the same tarp. But this saves a lot of headache. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pace off this distance from this corner, or from that corner to that corner, from this loop to that loop after they're stretched tight. I put my heel right up against that loop. 1, 2. And I'm making sure my boots touch. Okay, wait a minute. I never was very good at math. Start over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and about 2 inches, so just a little more than 7 paces. So knowing that, we can remove these, and this is where it gets interesting. Okay, so we know 7 paces is the magic number, and we're going to go to this one of the side corners of the tarp, and we're going to put this right next to the log. This is not the center corner of our diamond. These corners are going to be parallel to the log. And they're not going to be tight. They're going to be 7 paces apart. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right against the log. And there's our other corner here. I'm going to go a little bit further than 7 and put that in the ground. Okay. In this corner, we'll get to that in a little bit. So basically what we're doing is building a Baker style tarp shelter backwards. So I will come in 2 grommets. This is the center. I'm counting 2 grommets from the back corner. And I'm going to draw this 90 degrees to the tree. Put in a stake. I'm going to do the same thing over here. 2 grommets from the corners. This is in the very middle. This is going to be our other back corner. We'll pull those nice and tight. Get them about 90 degrees if we can. And then this gets flopped toward the center. Good place to put your gear on that inside when it's wet. Looking good. I just so happened to have brought my trekking poles. These are for the front supports, which can be guyed out. Or you can use branches, tree branches or saplings. And I happen to know the right height for my tarp. It's about around up to my nose is right where it needs to be. And you go to the second grommet here too. I'm just going to try to get that to stay there while I put the other one in. We can guy that out in a little bit. And go up to grommet number 2. And we'll get some cordage and we'll guy these out. Okay friends, I have the corners guyed out. I have another guy at the center point of the roof pulling back to keep a little bit of headroom in here. Both corners guyed out, and all we have left to do now is flop the awning over here, and I'll guy that out with a longer piece of cordage, and we'll probably try to find a pole to make this more elevated so we have a place to sit here. One thing I like to do is if I'm going to have a fire, in this case, if I was spending the night here, I would want a nice cooking fire right here. I can warm myself, I can get a little heat going into the shelter, but I also can cook here. prepare meals on top of this big log. It's pretty flat on top. But what I have is just a piece of scrap wire that's maybe electric fence wire or some kind of tinned wire. I only have about, there's probably 10 feet here at the most. And I weighed it because I was curious how much weight that would add to the pack. It only weighs an ounce. And so I could use that as a guy part way, and then after I'm past the fire, I can hook on with my cordage so the smoke and the heat of the fire doesn't melt my cordage. So I'm going to try to set that up now. The only two things we have to do is set up the awning and put the ground cloth down for the sleeping area. But as you can see already, this is super comfortable. It also is super sheltered in here because this log, and it also has a night mode, which I'll show you later in the video. But this log keeps the wind from getting in here. It's going to be a lot warmer sleeping in here. Another option is to use this ground cloth to make a curtain from corner to corner here to completely seal this off. You know, if it was really bad weather, you could put boughs inside here and use the ground cloth for a barrier in the front. But this is called a half-faced shelter, which is usually enough. 3 seasons out of the year, you probably wouldn't have to worry about it. It does keep the wind out, and that's one trick that canoeists have used for years, is laying the canoe in front of their shelters or alongside to break the wind coming off the lake. So just think of this as a big canoe. Do a Google search on canoe tarp shelters. You'll see all kinds of ideas and all kinds of ways that the old timers use their canoes for shelter. So anyway, this is a perfect log because it's a great sitting height here. You can really relax. So anyway, let's put the awning up and let's get the ground cloth down there and see what the possibilities are. Okay, friends, there isn't a lot of really nice saplings around here. So I found this big honking dead pine tree. A little bit heavy for this, but I didn't want to kill a living tree, and there's no willows or anything around. Anyway, this doesn't have to be vertical. I might actually leave it at an angle so it saves more room out here for the, well, I don't know, that seems to be pretty good right there. I like to leave a couple branches on there so you can hang, you know, some clothes that get wet, or maybe a towel or something that you need to dry by the fire. And yeah, this is nice. Got a wire guide line going out. I mean, you could use a regular piece of parachute cord or anything like that there, and then just have your fire off to the side, and you could still get in here. But yeah, this is super nice. Come on in, I'll show you the interior here, how nice it is. I really like having this wool blanket on this rough bark. It's just like a sofa. So there is plenty of room back here for 2 guys, or 1 guy and a dog and a bunch of gear easily. And I'm about 5'8", and there is at least almost 3 feet of leftover area at my feet. But man, you could read a book in here with a lantern. This is really nice. Really sheltered from the wind. And here's the view from inside. It's a real breezy day, gusts up to 20 miles an hour, and it is dead calm inside this shelter right now. It is really nice. One other footnote before we continue on is I did put a piece of parachute cord over the wire because I didn't want it to cut into the webbing on the tarp there. I think before I would do this again, I'd probably get a little piece of tubing just for that and keep it with the wire permanently. But anyway, parachute cord worked pretty good, and it'll save the tarp. You don't want to have that on the tarp there. It'll chafe in the wind, and pretty soon it'll tear out that loop. I was thinking of a little more coverage at night, so I'm going to leave my ground cloth in there, keep the dew off my bag, and take this down. I haven't actually tried this yet, so we're just going to find out if it's a viable option or not. But just take this down, remove the wire temporarily, and then guide this. Well, yeah, it's not that rigid. But anyway, this would help if it was loosely guyed, or if I guide those corners out a little bit better. Just keep the wind out a little bit more at night. The log will do a lot to deflect the wind coming in this way. It'll bounce up. Probably most of it will go over the top of the tent or swirl around underneath there. But I thought of this. A guy could cut a pole to put in here, smooth like a willow pole, or an alder or something along the creek where you could get something smooth. And you could put that in here. Then you could guy it down pretty well. And to get the wind to deflect off there would be just a little bit cozier sleeping quarters. Anyway, that was my thoughts on that. And it should work pretty good. But like I say, there's nothing wrong with just leaving it as a half-faced. As long as the weather isn't too severe, that should work out pretty good. It is a nice night. Nice night for a little campfire. Well, there you go, friends. The Log Tarp shelter. It's a really fast, really functional tarp set. I mean, look at how comfortable I am sitting here by the fire. So let me know what you think, and let me know if you've ever tried this before, or if maybe you plan to try it in the future. I highly recommend it. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm going to sit here by the fire for a little bit and just enjoy the great outdoors. It's a really nice night. Until next time, God bless, happy trails. This is over and out from the West Fork Woodsman. Yeah.